私はスクラムインクジャパンの荒本です。今日は、スクラムガイドの2020がアップデートされましたので、その内容について、スクラムの共同考案者であるジェフ・サザーランド博士に来てもらってますので、インタビューを通じてスクラムガイド2020の内容を理解していきたいというふうに思います。
Thank you for inviting me this morning. I am excited to talk about the new changes to the Scrum Guide.
このインタビュービデオを見ていただく方は、スクラムガイド2020これを手元に置いてですね見ていただくと効果的かなというふうに思います。必ずしも手元になくても分かるようにしていきたいというふうに思います。最も重要な変更を最初にカバーしたいというふうに思ってますので、スクラムガイドでは多少前後に飛びます。ただし全てをカバーをするようにしていきたいと思ってますし、そのカバーするセッションというのを最初に言いますので、フォローすることができると思います。またここで取り上げられない質問というのもいくつかあると思うんですけれども、その場合についてはスクラムインクジャパンのチームのメンバーに共有していただければ、それらの回答を得ることができると思います。それでは、ジェフ・サザーランド博士に聞いてみたいと思います。まずはじめにスクラムガイド2020の変更の概要について教えてください。
So the 2020 guide, we tried to update it because people in many different domains are using Scrum in many different departments in many different types of companies. So we wanted to simplify it, make it easier to understand. We've shortened it to 13 pages. And at the same time, we've clarified some of the concepts in the Scrum Guide because we always look at what are the challenges in the Scrum community worldwide and how can we update the guide to address some of the problems that we see in the industry.
では次にスクラムガイド2020の変更の詳細について質問していきたいと思います。最大の変更、これはスクラムの作成物だと思いますが、それぞれの作成物に対して確約、コミットメントというものがあります。これができた目的やなぜ必要になったのか、これについて教えてください。
We found that one of the biggest problems for product owners was not having a vision and the goal to achieve and clearly explaining that to the team. Purpose of the product backlog is to create a product or an initiative or a service that meets a product goal. So we want the product owner and the team committed to achieve that goal. This is a instantiation of the product vision. As soon as we talked about the product backlog and the product goal being a commitment of the team to achieve the product backlog's goal, then we said, okay, the sprint goal has already been very important, but that should be the team needs to commit to achieve the goal of the sprint backlog. And the increment, which has already been an important artifact, and the definition of done, which has been important in the Scrum Guide, need to be connected. The team needs to commit to get done the stories inside a sprint that make up the sprint increment. The product vision is not replaced with the product goal. The product goal is the implementation of the product vision. And so when we try to get the product owners more focused on delivering, we need to make it concrete and specific. The product vision is implemented as the product goal, and the team commits to implement the product backlog whose goal is that product vision, and the implementation is the product goal. This addresses some of the biggest problems we've seen in implementing products, projects, initiatives. And in fact, in the Department of Defense, they have a Defense Innovation Board that has said one of the most important things is that the team understand the product charter And that means they need to understand the project goal. And if they don't understand that, they do not do a good job. So an any pattern is the people not understanding the global objective of the product backlog. In addition to the team achieving the product goal, the way they do that is sprint by sprint, the sprint increments add up to the product goal. In the previous Scrum Guide, we had already talked about the importance of the sprint goal, that the daily meeting is for the discussion, how is the team going to meet the sprint goal more effectively? In this Scrum Guide, we wanted to make it clear that the commitment of the team inside the sprint is to meet the sprint goal. A very common NA pattern is that the sprint goal is not clear to the team, so team members are working on things that do not take the team towards the sprint goal. This compromises the product, it compromises the business, and it leads to very bad results. The final artifact is the increment, and its commitment is the definition of done. The definition of done has always been very important in the Scrum Guide, but now we've made it clearer that the purpose of the increment is getting done all the pieces of the backlog that are needed to create the increment. So now we have a nice linkage. The product goal, the team's committed to achieve it. That's the reason for the product backlog. The second artifact, the sprint backlog, the goal is to achieve the sprint goal. That will implement the sprint backlog. The increment itself, the third artifact, the commitment is to make that done. That means it's usable to the end users. A common NA pattern is to finish a sprint with things not meeting the definition of done. This causes significant delays, and we found in complex products, hardware, software combinations, something that is not done inside a sprint can take 24 times longer to get done outside the sprint. And so this can cause major compromises to project schedules.
スクラムマスターはチームのサーバントリーダーからスクラムチームと組織に行使する真のリーダーとなりました。なぜ変更されたのでしょうか。真のリーダーとサーバントリーダーと異なることは何でしょうか。
Next important change to talk about comes in the Scrum Master section. Scrum Masters are now leaders who serve instead of servant leaders. The reason for this is that many Scrum Masters were not feeling responsible for meeting the commitments of the product goal, the sprint goal, and the definition of done for the increment. They saw servant leadership meant they didn't have to be responsible. So we're changing the order of the terms. We're saying, okay, leaders who serve are responsible for making sure the commitments are met, but the way they do it is to serve the team. So how is that different than being a servant leader? It's not different. A leader who serves is a servant leader who meets the commitment.
作成物とコミットメント、この関係というのがよく理解できました。またそのコミットメントに対してスクラムマスターが責任を持つんだということに変わっていく、それがスクラムマスターが真のリーダーだというふうに書き換えられた、そういうことが理解できたと思います。
The issue is the Scrum Master needs to be like a coach of the team. Now, if the coach of the soccer team does not win the game, then the coach has failed the team.
スクラムマスターのところでイベントをファシリテートするっていう記載が2020のアップデートではなくなったんですけれども、その理由というのはどういうところでしょうか。
The Scrum Master is a facilitator of events, but the whole idea of a facilitator is to actually bring to closure an event with a positive outcome. And this requires leadership that serves. And we're finding that many Scrum Masters, they hold the events, but the events do not produce results. So the leader has not served the team. The leader has let the team fail. So we want to make it clear that the Scrum Master is a responsible leader for coaching the team to bring about success.
次に大きな変更としては、スクラムチームの開発者のセクションだと思います。これまでの開発チームから開発者に変更されました。チームの単位というのはスクラムチームだけになりましたけれども、その背景と目的というのを教えてください。
One of the major goals of this version of the Scrum Guide is to make the team more cohesive. We used to have the Scrum team, which include the product owner, Scrum Master, and developer team. But then people felt like the developer team was separate from the product owner and Scrum Master. That led to bad results. So now, particularly when we have new domains, we have sales teams that are Scrum teams. We have marketing teams that are Scrum teams. We have financial groups that are Scrum teams. We have Scrum teams in the oil business and the automobile business. We have Scrum teams in human resources. These people need to be cohesively one team. So now in the new Scrum Guide, there is one team. It has a product owner, it has a Scrum Master, and it has developers. We say very at the beginning of the guide, by developers, we mean people who do the work, okay? They're not software developers. They're people who do work to achieve the increment of the sprint.
スクラムガイドでは少し戻るのですけれども、スクラムチームのセクションというところでは、スクラムチームの自己管理について説明をされています。これまでの自己組織化との違いを教えていただけますでしょうか。
One of the biggest problems that we have in the Scrum community is that Agile developers sometimes think self-organization means they can do whatever they want. This is directly opposite of self-organization, which is a concept from complex adaptive systems, where an intelligent system self-organizes to achieve the goal. So if developers are not self-organizing to achieve the sprint goal, they're causing the team to fail. So we've said self-managing is maybe a term that people can understand. The team self-manages to achieve the sprint goal. And the sprint goal adds up to the product goal. And the increment they deliver every sprint is done. That's self-organization.
スクラムイベントについてお伺いしたいと思うんですけれども、スプリントプランニングでは、3つのトピックスっていうのがカバーされることになりました。新しく追加されたトピックスっていうのは、このスプリントはなぜ価値のあるのかですけれども、この新しいトピックスが追加された重要性、これについて教えてください。
One of the biggest challenges for team performance is for the team to understand what the goal is, and that is based on what is valuable in the sprint and why the sprint is valuable. So if they can't agree on what the value of the sprint is, they don't understand the sprint goal and they can't meet their commitment. And we found that for teams to be successful in sprint planning, the product owner and the team need to agree on a goal that they all understand and they need to commit to achieve that during the sprint. That produces good teams with good products. We have found, and there are some great videos from Apple on this issue, it's only when people know why they're doing what they're doing that they achieve great results. So the anti-pattern is teams that are just doing backlog without understanding why. They often do the wrong things. They often produce results that are not what the product owner wants. And they produce results which the users don't like. And if they understand why the user wants a capability, then they increase their success dramatically by understanding why. It's not enough just to go through the motions of doing something. You have to produce something that has real value. And to do that, you need to know why.
デイリースクラムに移っていきたいと思います。デイリースクラムにおいては、チームが答えるこれは3つの質問というセットがありましたけれども、これが今回のスクラムガイドではなくなりました。スクラムガイドからより指示的なものが少なくなっているというふうに思うのですが、指示的なものをなくすことがなぜ重要なんでしょうか。
Well, in the last version of the Scrum Guide in 2017, we said the questions were optional because people were just asking the questions without asking, why are we doing what we're doing and how can we achieve the sprint goal in the best possible way? So in the daily scrum, they need to talk about their commitment to achieve the sprint goal and how they are going to be really effective and do that really well. And every day do it better than the day before. And how they do that, that is up to the team. I think this is particularly important in Japan because it is very easy in Japan for people to say, we answered all the questions, but not to discuss why they're doing what they're doing and how they're going to meet the sprint goal.
最後のスクラムイベントであるスプリントレビューについて、少しお聞きたいと思います。スプリントレビューのニュアンスというのも少し変わっているようです。以前はプロダクトオーナーはプロダクトバックログアイテムの完成したものと完成していないものについて説明をするというふうに記載されていました。スクラムガイド2020ではスクラムチームは主要なステークホルダーに作業の結果を提示してプロダクトゴールに対する進捗について話し合うというような書き方になりました。スプリントレビューにおける変更点、変更の目的というのはどういうところでしょうか。
Well, in this last change, the wording of what the product owner and the team does in the sprint review, we put more focus on getting agreement with the stakeholders. Are we meeting the objectives of the stakeholders? And we've actually moved the commitment getting to done as a commitment of the team for the increment artifact. So the team understands that it has to be done. The product owner will determine that, but in the sprint review, we want to get agreement with the stakeholders. That's what's being done is actually what they want. So we want a better fit to the user result.
スプリントレビューにおいてはプレゼンテーションに限定するのではなくてワーキングセッションにすべきだというふうに書かれています。このワーキングセッションというのは具体的にどのようなものなのかもう少し教えてもらえないでしょうか。
We want the sprint review to be a working session to figure out how to better achieve results that the stakeholders want. The intention is to get a better match between what the development team is doing and what the stakeholders' goals are. That requires working together with the stakeholders, trying to update the backlog to give the stakeholders better results.
ということは、よりステークホルダーにこのスプリントレビューの中での活動をもっと多くステークホルダーと一緒に行うべきだということですか？
Yes. Closer collaboration with the stakeholders in the sprint review is really important for good results from the sprint.
では次にレトロスペクティブについて聞きたいと思います。2017年のスクラムガイドにおいては、レトロスペクティブにおけるスクラムマスターの役割というのが明記されています。しかし2020年版のスクラムガイドにおいては、レトロスペクティブにおいてのスクラムマスターの役割というのが明記されなくなりました。レトロスペクティブにおけるスクラムマスターの役割というのは変わることになるんでしょうか？
Okay, the Scrum Master is a leader who serves. That means in the retrospective, since the goal of the retrospective is to figure out how to improve the team in the next sprint, the Scrum Master, as the leader who serves, makes sure the team identifies improvements and puts them into the next sprint backlog.
デイリースクラムのところでもスクラムチームが計画するのはデイリースクラムの時間ではなくて1日を通じて適用や再計画の話し合いをすべきだというふうに書かれています。これが追加された背景とか目的意図というのを教えてください。
For high performing teams, it's critically important that they work together during the day and you have multiple people working on one story and they're figuring out together how to do that story faster, better, with less effort. This is a pattern again called swarming. So the patterns, in order to have performance, need to go together with the Scrum Guide. We say the patterns are optional, but they're only optional if you want to have poor performance. If you want to have high performance, you need to have these patterns. There needs to be daily discussion together what the team is doing. There need to be multiple people working on individual items in the sprint, and they need to be constantly collaborating throughout the day to get really high performance.
これが最後の質問になります。スクラムの定義についても変更がありました。以前はスクラムというものは軽量で理解が容易だが習得は困難だということでした。今回はスクラムはシンプルであり、まずはそのままの状態で試してほしいというようなメッセージになりました。この変更の理由というのはどういうところでしょうか？
When we started implementing Scrum, most of the people using it were in software development. These engineers try to make things very complex and difficult to understand. Today, most of the people that I work with in my company are actually not doing software development. They're using Scrum for many other things. And for many teams, they need a really simple, easy way to get started. And then to help them achieve high performance, we introduce the lean principles and the patterns. But the Scrum Guide itself has been shortened from close to 20 pages down to 13 pages. So it's easier to read, it's easier to get started, and it's more oriented towards let's get going and get scrumming.
はい、ジェフインタビューありがとうございました。このインタビューを通じてスクラムガイド2020の理解というのが、進みました。このスクラムガイド2020を活用して我々もスクラムの実践というのを進めていきたいと思います。最後にこのスクラムガイドのアップデートに関して、ジェフから何かメッセージはありますでしょうか？
The final thing I'd like to say about the Scrum Guide is it's now where it's easy to get started for people who are not working in software development but are working in many other domains. And we've clarified that servant leadership means leading the team to higher levels of performance, better fit to customer needs. And we've clarified that self-organization means self-managing to achieve the commitments, the commitment to the product goal, the commitment to the sprint goal, the commitment to get done and deliver an increment in every sprint. So our goal is always to make the Scrum Guide shorter, simpler, and clearer. And we hope we've been able to do that with this new version of the Scrum Guide.
はい、ジェフ、今日はありがとうございました。
Thank you.
皆さんいかがでしたでしょうか。スクラムガイド2020、この変更点をドクター・サザーランドから聞いてより理解が深まったのではないでしょうか。このスクラムガイドの変更点を理解をして真のスクラム、これを実践していきましょう。